Welcome to the Shuffle Curious podcast. I'm your host, Patty Lynch. Have you ever seen an amazing shuffler at a show or festival and wondered, how did they get started? How did they develop their skills? And who are they beyond the dance floor? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring in the show. We'll dive into the personal experiences of the dancers that make up our beloved community. We'll be learning more about who they are and what makes this dance so special to them. So, with that, let's jump into the show and let's get curious together. This is episode 4 of the Shuffle Curious podcast. And in this episode, I was able to speak with my friend Didi. And, in our conversation, Didi gave some of her most enlightening moments surrounding shuffling and how it inspired her to take action with some big decisions in her life. And we also talked about her founding of the Mile High Shufflers and the evolution that's kind of occurred throughout the years. And she's just so passionate about music and wants to support the scene in a myriad of ways. So I really enjoyed our conversation. And it was interesting to me because I just haven't had the opportunity to really sit down and talk with Didi like this beforehand. So I'm really moved by her journey and what she's done for the local shuffle community. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Didi Garza, the founder of the Mile High Shufflers. Didi, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. All is well. It's really awesome to have you on. Just being the founder of the Mile High Shufflers and being an awesome dancer and just being a super cool person. It's an honor to have you on and just hear about your experiences.
Yeah. Thank you for thinking of me.
Of course. So it was funny, moving to Colorado and being a part of the Mile High Shufflers. Like, you've cultivated such an awesome environment here and an awesome collective. And but you're very approachable, and you're able, like, you have the personality of what we would need for the Mile High Shuffler leadership. You know what I mean? Like, your engagement with the community is pretty awesome. And it was like intimidating for me when I first got here. I remember seeing you like on the Mile High Shufflers page when I was still in North Carolina, making my way here. I knew that I would be going to school in Colorado, and I was looking for like-minded people and individuals who are shuffling. And so I found MHS, and I knew that you were the leader of that. So I remember my first meetup. It was like August of 2021 or something like that.
That's a good time.
Yeah. No, it was awesome, and I had a lot of fun. But I remember seeing you on the page, and then I saw you in person. And you were just as an amazing dancer in person as you were on the page. And I didn't introduce myself. I don't think I introduced myself in that meetup. It wasn't until the following month where it was like a little bit more of an intimate meetup. It was at Belmar Park versus Cheeseman Park. And I eventually, started chatting with you and hitting it off. And, but I was still like timid because I think this was the time where you're like picking up DJing. You were also like doing all these gigs and stuff like that. And so you were very much nested in the scene already. And, I was just getting started on my shuffle journey. I was like a shuffle baby. So, and yeah, just like events like the Shuffle Wisdom Halloween party and a couple other gigs here and there that I would I'd go to and stuff like that. So like, I don't think it was until New Year's going into like 2022 where we went to the church nightclub and we saw your boyfriend Frick play, and you had extended an invitation to me kindly that night to just come and kick it at your house for like an after party type thing. And I think that's when I was able to actually, not be intimidated or anything, because I knew you're just like a person, like you're a homie. And that night I was able to just connect with your friends outside of Mile High Shufflers. A bunch of the Mile High Shufflers were there as well. And it was just like a super nice gesture. And it just made me less timid, I guess,
Yeah,
which is funny because if anyone's watching this, like I'm like 200 pounds, 6'1", and you're a petite human being. So for me to be like intimidated by you is like silly.
I get that a little bit. So,
but so yeah, that's kind of my side of just arriving here and the relationship that we've formed, and obviously that's grown over the years and stuff like that. It's become more familiar, but the show is not about me. It's about everyone else essentially. So I want to talk about you for a little bit. I want to know your background. Where are you originally from? How long have you been in Colorado at the moment, and how long have you been shuffling for?
so I'm originally from Texas. I moved out here 4 years ago, and I've honestly lost count of how long I've been shuffling for, but I want to say about 5, maybe 5.5 years, if we want to count last year, which I don't really count it, but yeah, about 5 years.
Why don't you count last year?
I guess that I feel like I didn't grow at all with my dance last year. I just kind of took a bit of a hiatus, but um, we'll still count it because it was still an active part of my life. Even though I wasn't actively dancing, I think my world still revolved around it. So we'll say about 5.
Yeah, I would count that year. Even if you're not actively dancing it, you're still a spectator or you're still engaged with it. Whether you're playing shows for shufflers to boogie to, that's you're a part of it one way or another. You're getting maybe even subconscious like inspiration that way. That when you begin to dance again, maybe you're better for it. That you took that time off or whatever else.
Yeah, I was like the supportive mom. I feel like this year I was just like on the sidelines, cheering everybody on.
We all need one of those for sure. Okay, cool. So before you embarked on this 5-year journey that it is now, what was life like before shuffling?
Pretty difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It was difficult and a little dark and a bit empty. Um, my hometown didn't really have much to offer. So right before shuffling, I was going to school, and I'm not the best student. I never really enjoyed school, if I'm being completely honest. And I think it was mostly because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so it was more of something that I felt like I had to do, not that I wanted to do, which ultimately I'm so glad that I did. But my entire life was school and work. The last 2-3 years of life before I moved out here, I was just putting my head down, and I knew I wanted to get out of the situation that I was in. So yeah, life was a little difficult because I feel like I was in that period where I'm becoming an adult and I'm learning about myself, and I'm discovering parts of myself that I like and that I don't like, and the path that I wanted to take. And it wasn't an easy path, and it wasn't a path that was always supported by my family. So it was difficult because my friendships were very small. There weren't many people that I felt aligned with back home. So yeah, things weren't the best before. But I think that's just part of life. We all hit that wall, and I feel like I really hit that, and shuffling just kind of helped me jump over it, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We all have this kind of times where don't know what we want to do with our lives, not sure what our glide path is, moving forward.
It
Yeah, and I think
was,
interests like this kind of help you in regards to that, you know?
yeah, it was just a little redundant, and I could feel myself in that cycle. Um, so it just brought excitement, and it brought a lot of drive towards what I wanted to do next. Just like sparked something in me. Yeah.
What were your interests before shuffling? Like what would you gravitate towards?
I was always really big on music. Um, always. It's not, maybe not dance music. I've always used to listen to a lot of alternative and like indie music. So I was big on people like Cage the Elephant and Amity 3 and just those more like niche, smaller little indie bands. And so I was always really big into music that wasn't very popular in my hometown. Um, and so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I never tapped into that because there wasn't much, like I said, to offer in my hometown. So, all we had were country music concerts, and every once in a while we'd get someone like Wiz Khalifa. So it was something that I kind of enjoyed in solitude. It wasn't something that I shared with people up until I met like my best friends that I have now. They're literally my friends because we connected through music. So yeah, I would say music's always been a part of my life. It's just not something that I ever explored or had the opportunity to explore until now. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you are exploring it on many different levels, such as the dance still, and also DJing and mixing. And are you producing yet?
I'm not. No. I've said this before, but I can't focus on more than one thing at once. If I'm going to do something, I put all my eggs in that basket. So until I feel pretty confident with my DJing, I don't think I want to dabble into anything else until then.
I feel that. I feel
Mhm.
that. I think the if you're passionate about the one thing and you're getting good at it, you're seeing progress, like all the other things can wait.
Yeah.
There's good DJs that aren't producers as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know that like producing will help me with the
Mhm.
DJing, just one thing at a time. I tend to bite off more than I can chew, so I try to be conscious of doing that.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so you had talked a little bit about like before shuffling. What was that moment or that time period like where you were something inspired you to start shuffling? Like what was like ground zero for your shuffling journey, or day zero rather?
um, Funny enough, my best friend Carly is the one who introduced me to it. And I don't even know where she found it. At this point, we were just dabbling, or maybe not just dabbling, but we were getting familiar with like EDM and raves, because we were like 17, 18, and since it wasn't in our hometown, that wasn't something that we picked up at 16 like a lot of other people did. Um, so I think she just saw somebody on Instagram. I think a lot of people, that's how they end up finding it. But she showed me and she was like, I really want to try this. And she was on the pom squad in high school. So she's always been big on dance. And I've never been a dancer. I don't have any background in dance. I mean, I took a year of hip hop and a year of ballet actually when I was in the 5th grade. But I wasn't good at all. And I gave up, unfortunately. And so when she showed me, it wasn't like oh my God, I love to dance. I want to know how to do this. It was more of, I love this music and I've never known how to dance to it. And it was just the most intriguing thing to see. And so I remember she had this YouTube tutorial up one night and we were like really wine drunk. So we're like, let's give it a try. And of course, I was really, really bad at it. But it was a lot of fun. I remember us just having so much fun. So that was kind of the introduction that we had. It was a bit of a slow burn, but yeah, it came from my friend Carly.
After that experience, that wine night or whatever, was it, I had a lot of fun with that, like let's look at more tutorials when we're not, when, when we're more cognizant, that sort of
Yeah.
thing? And was it you and her just getting after it and
It
starting?
was definitely us two, and then our good friend Jordan as well. Because at this point we were already planning to go to like festivals and things, and we had people that we were following on Instagram, and so we were looking up tutorials, and it was never anything that serious. It was always just kind of something playful, and something to do. Like I said, we didn't have anything to do back in our hometown, so this was just us entertaining ourselves. It was just something that sparked joy, and so I remember I just remember wanting to be good at it. I could see, I mean, I'm not oblivious, and I could see myself in the mirror. I'm like, this doesn't look right. I'm not, why can't I get this? It seems so simple. So for me, it was more of like, I want to prove to myself that I can do these two little steps. Like I can do this. And in the moment around that time, my apartment, in my bedroom, my like closet doors were huge mirrors. So I would just sit in my room and I would just like go over that Running Man over and over and over. I'm like, I want to get good at this. So yeah, that was about the beginning of it, I would say.
Do you think the like the festivals on the horizon was like was a little bit of ammunition or motivation for you to like keep practicing because you like wanted to kill that festival or whatever?
It was that, but it was also kind of a competitive thing.
Okay.
I'm very competitive by nature, and like I said, my best friend Carly, she's been in dance her entire life, so she picked it up so fast, and I was determined. I'm like, I can get just as good. Like I know I can. Um, so for me, it was just more of a trying to prove to myself again that I could do this thing. I don't like not being able to do something. Like if I wanted to do something, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So that's probably where a lot of that came from. Yeah.
Just your competitive nature.
Yeah. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something.
Mm.
Because I knew that I had tried dance before and I gave up. And I looked back on that and I wish I wouldn't have. And I wasn't going to do that again. So
You had something to prove this time around.
Yeah. This time I wanted to do it because I know back when I was in 5th grade, it was more of my mom pushing me to do it. Like, you should do this. I didn't truly want to do it. But this time I did. And maybe back then I also wanted to do it. And I was just an angry kid and trying to rebel against my mom, But yeah.
Got it. What did those, like starting from that time period where you're still just trying to figure it out, those frustrations and maybe but that competitive motivation to move forward, that first 6 months, what did that look like? I mean, what style were you gravitating towards? Was it structured practice, or was it just when you needed to dance? Like what did it kind of look like in your eyes as you were sitting in front of that mirror, a bunch?
So I definitely was doing more like shapes when I first started out. That's all that I had ever been exposed to. Watched a ton of Elena Cruz's videos. That's probably where I learned most of it. Which is just funny because it's like you want to look as good as she's doing it and you just don't. But yeah, the first 6 months were frustrating. I remember that. I remember just getting really frustrated with myself. Because again, a lot of this was coming from a competitive side of me and wanting to prove something. So whenever I wasn't achieving what I was going for, I was really mean to myself. And I'm my biggest critic, but I'm also my biggest supporter. So it was a lot of going back and forth. Like one side of my brain was like, you're not going to get this. This looks terrible. And then the other side of my brain is just like, shut up and just do it. So it was frustrating. And I think it was easier to keep with it having my friends who were also picking it up at the same time. because I don't have the best discipline all the time. So they were able to kind of keep that momentum with me. Yeah,
Kind of like keep you accountable,
they
make
did. They
sure.
really did. Yeah.
Do you think that people need both of those sides? The one that's like, do it freaking right, like you suck, that sort of thing. But then also the other side that's a little bit nicer to yourself, like encouraging. Or do you think we would benefit just off of the, do it right now, do it well, like drill instructor type mentality? Because it sounds like you had like a devil and an angel
Yeah.
on your shoulder.
It's hard to say. I think it depends on the person. Um, that works for me sometimes. But I also feel like it's a slippery slope, and sometimes those negative thoughts and voices can get too loud. And if you're not able to pull yourself out of that, then it becomes really harmful. Um, so I think finding the balance between the two is good, but I don't think everyone can find that. I mean, I can't always find that either. Um, so if you can stay on the other side of things, I think that's probably better. I think if I would have been kinder to myself, I would have grown a lot quicker. Um, I grew regardless, so I
Hmm.
don't, no regrets, and I'm human and it's going to happen. But yeah, I think if you can practice kindness, that's probably the route you should take.
Yeah, yeah. And I just asked that question because you just never know who's listening, who's in that rut, or who is maybe being too critical of themselves or
Yeah.
whatever else. That it makes their process seem a little bit more normal. When they hear that someone's gone through it as well,
Yeah.
and that it might serve them better to just be patient with themselves. It's a long journey. Progress is incremental. It's not linear.
Yeah, not at
and,
all.
and yeah.
You can also look at it as like, I guess, tough love, because sometimes you do need to be a little tough on yourself, in increments.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's been a lot of dance sessions where I didn't want to be there, for the
Yeah.
first 10 minutes,
Uh-huh.
but then you hit something and you're vibing and you're glad that you put your shoes on and, put yourself in an environment where you could dance.
Yeah.
It served you in that capacity. There's also been times where I've put my shoes on, danced for 10 minutes. I'm like, I'm not feeling it. You know what I mean? So I think it also is good to be a little bit authoritarian with yourself, but then back off if like you're really not, knowing whether you're just making excuses or whatever,
Yeah.
or if you're really not inspired and it really wouldn't serve you to dance today, or it'd be better to take a rest or
Yeah.
something like that.
And it's hard to like know that too.
Yeah.
And understand where those feelings are coming from.
Especially in the beginning, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think once you have time and, you establish that connection with your body, you have a little bit better calibration, in regards to that. So, no, very cool. Another question that I like to kind of talk about in the beginner stages is, when did you feel like you were just flowing, like that shuffling was no longer a sequence of events that you were like consciously thinking about, and it was more just like a flow and you were able to then listen to the music more?
I can't tell you exactly how long I'd been shuffling for, but it was definitely right after Electric Forest. Um, I remember coming home from that, and that was the first time I'd ever seen shufflers like out in the wild.
Literally the
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. And I came back and I just tapped into something that I had never tapped into before, and I completely got out of my head after that. And I grew like significantly. I'd say it was probably about a little under a year when this happened. And it was when I started to kind of get out of shapes and dabble in other styles as well. I was finally like learning what felt good to my body, not just trying to understand, I guess, the structure of certain things and the mechanics of it. Cause I think that was the hardest part for me, were the mechanics and the technicality of it because I have no technical experience. And I got really, really, really stuck in that to where it made the experience a bit frustrating. So yeah, after Electric Forest, definitely.
You were able to kind of compartmentalize that part of the brain that was thinking about technicalities and the sequence of moves and just like the mobility of it versus the more like the flowy aspect of it where you're just listening to the music and that's dictating your movement, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was the technicality became second and just dancing, it felt way more natural. Um, and I feel like that was really hard to achieve, to reach that moment where I'm like, I'm no longer like thinking about how I'm dancing. I'm just dancing, and it looks better than it ever has, which is just crazy to think. So you're exerting all of this energy trying to like do things right, but the moment you release that, you'd you'd be surprised what your body can do, and what it if you just allow it to do it. I think that was the first time where I just allowed myself to dance. Yeah.
With like no expectation of what the result ought to be, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool that, and I think this is becoming a theme. It's when someone goes to a festival or a show or even like a certain set from an artist, they have that moment, where it it changes their mind body connection. It's the weirdest thing. It's like almost like a rewiring
Yeah.
of how your brain is processing or thinking about how it's going to perform a dance.
Yeah. It was like when you listen to your favorite song, you can't think about anything but what that song's making you feel in that moment. And that's when you really get lost in that flow state. And I was still newer. Well, not, I guess, newer. I've been going to festivals now for almost 10 years. But I was just kind of getting into more of the raves. So I was experiencing that feeling a lot more often than I did at, some of the other festivals where I was just seeing like bands perform. It's a totally different experience. Yeah, I can't forget what else we were talking about.
Just E-Forest stuff. I'm stuck
Oh
on
yeah,
E-Forest
yeah.
at the moment. Remind me if was that the first place where you saw Melbourne Shufflers do their thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's probably another source of inspiration, because you had mentioned you're pretty much primarily like shapey. That's what you were exposed to
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram and stuff like that. What was that experience like for you, witnessing just a new take on shuffling, an old take on shuffling, but
An
a
old
new take
take.
to you for
Yeah.
you?
I was just I was starstruck. And I was a little intimidated. Because you could tell that these people all had a bond. And they were all very much in synergy and connected. And I felt like an outsider a little bit. And I couldn't even comprehend what I was seeing because I had never seen it before. Um, or what I did see, I saw maybe a few like hard style videos. Um, and I remember me and my friend Carly were just like, we're not into that. I don't know what that is. And so to then see shufflers in person doing it, I'm like, this is a whole different experience than what I saw online. And at this point, my friend Carly wasn't even dancing that much anymore. So it was really just me. And I remember just stepping into a circle at one point that I can't remember everyone who was there. I remember specifically, though, Two Pool and Betsy were there, and they were just the kindest humans. And when I jumped in that circle, they were so just happy to see someone new jump in. And they were just really kind. And I remember studying them the entire weekend. Like, I stood outside of that circle and I just watched, and I was soaking everything in. And as soon as I got home, I'm like, this is fresh on my mind. I need to drill this, and I want to learn what they're doing. So yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't realize it was two pool.
Yeah, Tupelo and Betsy.
Probably really good people to learn from and to be
Yeah.
inspired from, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure for anyone listening that knows Betsy, like, if you see Betsy, she will be dancing absolutely anywhere. It doesn't matter where. And she is in a complete trance every single time. Like, she can tap into that flow state so easily. And I don't know how she does it. She just puts her guards down. And when she wants to dance, she's going to dance. She's going to listen to her body, and she's going to move. So it's just really, really admirable to watch. And it was life-changing. It really was.
Yeah, it must have been a treat, to be honest. Like, that's it's so cool to be in that environment and witnessing it for the first time, because obviously I've had that experience too. Like, I've been to many festivals before I started going to more EDM related festivals, and yeah, to see the shufflers roll up, and but just even with shapes, when I see someone who's killing it in shapes, just having that first experience where everyone's gathered together. Been to meetups, you know, shuffle meetups before, but the festival space is just like so different, you know?
It really is. And there's great communities all throughout, you know, music, but the dance community is just really, really tight, really, really close knit. And I can't really explain why or how, or, you know, because people bond over things all the time, and there's communities for everything. But the way the shuffle community has grown and just blown up over the last 4 or 5 years is kind of crazy to watch.
I agree. And I when I was speaking to Mario a couple weeks back, we kind of talked about that. And his hypothesis is that it's vulnerability. There's like a sense of vulnerability that just isn't in the fabric of other social, social packs or, networks.
Yeah.
Because, you are expressing yourself in your body, how you see fit to music that you love, and you're doing it in front of everyone to witness.
Yeah.
And if they accept you for that, which they usually do, because they're just stoked that you like the same music, the same dance that you do. I'm always stoked for whatever I see. If I just know someone shuffles, I'm stoked for them. But then there's that feedback loop of, okay, people accept me for being exactly who I am. And I think his hypothesis was that it creates that very tight social bond, because you're connecting with people on a level that you just can't, it's not as feasible in other forms and fashions or interests.
Yeah. My hypothesis is also that we're kind of the outcasts, I feel like we're not typically the cool kids, I feel like a lot of us, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but felt misunderstood. And we found people who didn't question us and who just accepted us, like you said.
Yeah. I feel like we are the cool kids now.
We're definitely the cool kids now, but I was not the cool kid then.
Definitely life before shuffling, not the cool kid. Definitely also shuffling solo, not the coolest of kids. And even Allie was talking about that too, when she was in Maine shuffling by herself. Like, she was kind of looked at as like a weirdo,
Oh yeah.
But then as soon as you're like in a group of 5 to 6 shufflers rolling up to a show and you're just getting it, like you become the cool kids really quick.
Yeah. I don't even want to think about what the people in my hometown think about shuffling. It's not even in my peripheral, but I'm sure they didn't think it was that cool either, but here we are. So doesn't matter.
Irrelevant. Their opinions are irrelevant. Yeah. Got it. So, okay. So after Electric Forest, you were struck with, a bunch of inspiration to embark on a new style journey.
Mhm.
What did that look like? What did that progression from Electric Forest look like for the rest of your journey? And then also, at what point in time were you then starting to move to Colorado, and then
Mhm.
you were starting to kind of nest here and then build this community?
So Electric Forest happened the summer before I moved out here. And so I remember coming back home. And at this point in my life, I was a gym rat. I was at the gym every single day. It was the fittest I've ever been. And so I would work out every day. And right after my workout, I'd dance for about an hour. And so the level up within the next few months was just insane because I wanted to dance every single day. It was every single day I was in front of those mirrors and the studio gym, and I was just going until I couldn't go anymore. And I remember I got back from Electric Forest and I saw that EZoo in New York was happening and all these shufflers were going. Immediately bought my ticket, bought a flight, and I'm like, I'm going to New York all by myself. I've never traveled alone before, but might as well go all out and go all the way to New York by myself. And so I trained and I was labbing, I guess you could say, for the weeks right before my trip to New York. And went to New York, of course, had the most amazing experience. There's a ton of shufflers in New York. And this time didn't feel like an outsider, felt like I belonged there, and met so many amazing people. I had an amazing weekend. Still one of the best weekends of my life, honestly. Again, more so because I was proud of myself. I was like, look, especially as someone who struggles a lot with social anxiety, taking a solo trip like that and honestly running to little to no issues and connecting with the people the way that I did, I was proud. I could feel myself stepping into a new era and feeling confident that my move to Denver was going to happen and that I was more than capable to make this happen. So it really just kind of solidified all of that for me. And pretty much came back from New York and spent maybe the last 3 months finishing up school, saving up the last bit of my money, and then graduated. And not even 2 weeks later, I was out here. I got that diploma and I dipped so fast. Um, so yeah, I feel like that last year before I moved out here was a bit of a blur, but like the best blur possible.
Yeah, it's like eyes forward type of thing,
Yeah.
you knew what you wanted. What do you think made that EZoo experience so like it was almost like the inspiration continued, like there was momentum that carried from Electric Forest into that, and then it was like rocket fuel into your life, and it kind of kept your head like screwed on tight, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. What do you think that
Um,
was?
I don't really know. I think it was just excitement. I felt I was experiencing so many new things. And I I don't know. I come from a really humble family. So it took a while for me to get to this space where I knew I could do whatever I wanted to do, go wherever I wanted to go. And so was getting a taste of life and I wanted more of it. It's so addicting the moment you figure out that everything is just at an arm's reach and you just have to reach out for it. Um, and so that was just pulling me. It was the driving force that I could manifest absolutely anything that I put my mind to.
Yeah. Yeah, you had like power over your life, and you're able to grasp it and wield it in the way that you felt
Yeah.
you wanted to.
Yeah, because like I said, life before shuffling and before I moved out here was really dark and really difficult and not the brightest period of my life. And shuffling was part of what pulled me out of that. Yeah.
I wasn't sure like how you were going to connect the dots
Yeah.
on that because yeah, it's you just never know because I think a lot of people who, let's say there's someone who's listening to this and they're not a shuffler, they could very much be like, how does a dance pull you out? You know what I mean? Like
Exactly. And it
how
sounds
does
cliche. I
come on
get
like
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when you walk the dog through the journey, you know what I
Well,
mean?
it's
Through
like
that like
when you have what feels like nothing, something this small feels like everything. Um, and it's all that I had, honestly. And so I held on, and it's really hard to explain.
no, I think it's
Maybe it was a bit of a crutch, but it's what I needed in the moment.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it did a lot for you. It looked like it gave you a creative outlet, number one. It gave you like a physical outlet, you
Gave me
know?
confidence.
Yeah. You know, confidence and the ability to move your body in the way that you want. It gave you a challenge. You said you're competitive. Like you're probably competitive against yourself as well, not just
Yeah.
other people. And it also gained you access into like a social circle because every time you go to a festival or you go to, you know, like probably when you went to EZU, you made a lot of friends as you had mentioned. And so it's probably like the social aspect of it as well. So it's more than just a dance for
It
sure.
is,
You know,
yeah.
there's a lot of layers to it, you know? So no, it's very cool to hear about your journey, but it doesn't stop there. You got to Colorado, and how long were you here, kind of doing your own thing, before you got the inclination to create the Mahai Shufflers?
It wasn't long at all. Um, so when I moved here, I was a part of Killer Steez. And so
What is Killer Steez?
Killer
Could you?
Steez is a crew.
Okay,
Yeah,
where
it's a shuffle
is
crew.
that? Austin?
No. I think Supa, the leader, I think he lives in California.
Okay,
So it's a pretty big collective, I guess, or crew.
excuse me for my ignorance.
No, and I mean I feel like they're not as active anymore, but in
Got
the
it.
moment, I definitely had friends online who were part of Killer Steez. So whenever they asked me, like I was honored, of course. And so whenever I moved out here, the leader Supa let me know that there were two other people that were a part of Killer Steez. And so I was connected with them almost immediately. And so I knew of them too. And then I knew of Emily, not Emily Kim, other Emily. Well,
Mhm.
actually, Emily Kim had been hanging out with the two other friends who were part of Killer C's. That's how I actually ended up connecting the dots with Emily at one
Mhm.
point. But other Emily, who runs our page, she knew of Sammy and Jorge. And so we were all like, we should all get together. And I was like, I know the perfect spot. There's this cool little pavilion right like by my apartment. Like we should check it out. And that was maybe a month or two after I moved here. So
Okay.
it was almost instant. I mean, the Mile High Shufflers wasn't created, but we all got together fairly shortly after I moved here. And I think after our second time meeting up, when we had, well, the first one was Paulina, Jorge, me, Sammy, and Emily. So there's five of us.
What a crew.
I know, it's crazy. And then
Bunch of heavy hitters. In that.
and we're all like on a break right now. And then the second one, we had maybe like two or three more people come. And then we're like, well, we should start a group chat. And then we did. And I think by like the third one, we're like, what should we call ourselves? or I think it was more of like, what do we call this group chat? And we were just like, Mile High Shufflers. And I don't even know if I came up with that or if Emily came up with that or if we all did as a group, but it didn't take long at all. And I think we started involving like DJs into it about no, we didn't involve a DJ probably about until 6 to 8 months after I had moved out here. Because that's when it was shortly after I met Frick, which was in August. And I think after a month of talking to him, I'm like, you want to play some music at the park for some friends? And he was so down. He was so about it. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And then it just never stopped after that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the origin stories. That it's just like, what do we call ourselves? Like, it was knowing like this is what our name is going to be. This is what we're going to do. You know
it was so not formal at all.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so the progression of that, you said 6 months in, 8 months in, you started to get DJs playing and stuff like that. How often were you guys meeting up? How quickly was it growing? What kind of intention, I guess, did you have behind it? Mm-hmm. Just throughout those beginning months, was it organically growing, or were you kind of inserting yourself and organizing a bit more as it carried on?
It was a little bit of both. I think it started becoming a little more structured once we created the page. And I honestly don't even know where that came from either. The desire to want to have a page. I think we just wanted a hub to show kind of our existence and get word out that we existed.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I would say it was pretty organic, and it was a bit slower at first. I don't think we picked up momentum until after our little Christmas meetup that we did, and I think that was maybe the third meetup with DJs that we had at that point. And I remember they just kept getting bigger, and each one there was someone new. And whenever you start off with just like 5 people and then you have 10 people, like every single person really mattered, and they still do, of course, but it was such a noticeable thing that we're like, who is this and who are you, and you're one of us.
One of us. One of us.
Yeah. And it was exciting because people were coming out of the woodwork. I'm like, yeah. I thought there were only 2 shufflers here, and we would just meet people randomly at the clubs, and we're like, okay, you have to come to one of our meetups. That's how we met Emily Raz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we met her at a Desert Hearts event at the church, and shout out Emily.
My first shuffle coach.
Yeah. So it was just an exciting thing, and it was kind of hard to believe, honestly, how it all happened. Because we were just trying to have fun. We were just trying to go to the park and listen to good music. At least I was. And like my whole thing was, how do I connect my life outside of shuffling and my circle that I have built outside of this with the community? It's like I said, for me, it's all about the music. Yes, I love dancing, but I love dancing because of the music. And obviously I can be a bit of a snob. So like for me, it was like, I want to introduce this music that's been introduced to me, because before I moved out here too, my knowledge was so limited. And as soon as I moved here, I feel like I met all the right people, and I was being introduced to so many things that I just wanted to pass that along too. I wanted to share that with everyone. So every month it was just like, okay, who can I get next? Like, who can I ask? And every single DJ was delighted to do it every single time. Like I didn't even have to, it was barely even a question.
Yeah, twist anyone's arm to do that.
Yeah. And so it just felt so good to give back to the community, and to give back to the DJs and just share those experiences and bring those worlds together.
I think that's like a common theme with our DJs. Like they love coming out to the park and spinning.
I
just
know.
Even this past meetup that we did, shout out to Alessandro Bodo and Chris Kritz. They were having a great time. Chris was having a rough time for the first 30 minutes just because it was cold. It was a little cold and windy. He had his like hands in his pockets or whatever. But he's like, dude, this is fucking awesome. Like he loved that people were dancing to his music and getting down, you know, and all DJs like that. And it's a lot of fun, you know?
I think people forget that that's a shared experience. Like a DJ wants nothing more than to see the dance floor popping off and seeing people dance. Like we're giving them exactly what they want. So it's really cool because they deserve that and they deserve the platform. So.
Yeah. And it's a given that we're going to be getting down for them too, you know? Yeah. And I think that helps with, because a lot of our homies are starting to DJ and things like that. And, you know, someone's jumping on the decks and people are dancing to it and it's building their confidence, you know, that like, okay, I'm not really messing this up where it's indistinguishable as music. Therefore you cannot dance. Yeah. It's everyone's doing a great job. And, you know, they're getting that positive feedback, even without saying a word, you know, just because we're moving our body, like we appreciate what you're doing up there, you know, that sort of thing. So no, I think it's a very cool interaction between shufflers, dancers, and then like the music community that, you know, is spinning music, mixing music, producing music and stuff like that. There's always going to be a pretty symbiotic relationship there. So you were building this from the ground up and it was kind of organically coming together. When did you realize like, oh, this is like a thing. Like we have like an organization here, you know, more or less.
It was probably after the first year, right before the pandemic hit. Because you said you showed up at a meetup 2021, right? August. Correct. 2021. So I remember our momentum right before the pandemic. I think we threw maybe like 2 meetups that did really well, or maybe even a meetup in March. I can't remember. And it went really well. And then I had all these ideas of things that I wanted to do. And then things just like shut down, which was kind of a blessing and a curse. I mean, it didn't stop anything, if we're being honest. Like we kept the park parties. We wore masks. We were those people.
I'll cut that part out. I'll censor it. No, you're good.
And I think even that year, our meetups were still huge. And I'm like, and I mean, granted, I think people just wanted to dance and they wanted an outlet because you couldn't go to the club. And so all throughout that year, and we weren't doing them every month at this point, but every other one we were doing, I still think like to this day, 2020 was probably the busiest we ever were. And at that point, our good friend Mike Lotto was helping us quite a bit, and he worked for a club in Boulder, so he had access to some amazing equipment and like subs and great sound. And so we were bringing this to the park and the people were just eating it up. We're ruffling feathers and the neighbors hated us, but the people loved it. And so that felt good because in that moment, those park parties were all we had, you know? And I feel like in that moment, all I could wait for was these restrictions need to go because I want to do this and I don't want to have any limitations. And I even think over that period of time too is whenever our social media just really popped off too, because a lot of people were just picking shuffling up. They were online a lot more than they ever were. So the growth then was monumental.
For our listeners, would you be able just to describe like the scene of a Mile High Shufflers meetup, like what that all entails? Because I mean, it's you could probably get an idea on our social media account, but you know, what's the vibe? What is happening around the pavilion, on the pavilion, all that stuff?
The pavilion is just interesting because not only do we have like our fam, but we get a lot of spectators. So we get a ton of people. Like Cheeseman Park's already a really busy park. It's central of the city. The Capitol Hill is the neighborhood around there. It's just a very lively neighborhood. And so if the day is nice, everyone's going to be out at that park. And so whenever you're blasting music at that pavilion, you're going to get people that are going to come by. And these people don't typically just, look and then walk off. Like these people pretty much stay and they gravitate towards what we're doing, and they're enjoying the music just as much as we are. And if they're not enjoying the music, they're enjoying the dancing. And if they're not enjoying either of those, they're trying to plug our music off. So it can get a little chaotic.
We've had our Karens.
We've had our Karens, but we've had like prom night. We'll get all these kids that are going to go to prom and they'll just come join the party. We've had people taking wedding photos that will crash the party and like get in the middle of the dance floor. You never know what you're going to get at Cheese. I think that's the best way to describe it, that you don't know what the turnout's going to be, but I don't think we've ever had a bad meetup. Maybe. Okay, I take that back.
Too soon.
I did say that too soon. And that wasn't even a bad meetup. I actually think that meetup was going to be great.
Yeah,
we were just getting started.
It was turning out pretty good. Yeah. It's all good though, and
some people don't like to let us have fun. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it was an anomaly though. It's 99.9% of the time. We
had been doing it for years. At that point, it was bound to happen. But overall, the vibe is very playful and very silly. We're not always dancing. We're not always shuffling. And I actually noticed at this last meetup, I think we finally managed to break the circle. The circle was still kind of there, but I noticed it wasn't as prominent as it was in previous meetups that we've had. But it's really just a time for us all to get together. It's family time is what it is. Because we're all into so many different things. And so on the weekends, we can't always all get together because some of us are at different shows. But the meetups are like sacred. Like if you can make a meetup, you're going to be there no matter what.
Yeah.
Because that's our time and that's our party. So yeah, I'd say it's a time to bond, a time to be playful and silly, and a time to just kind of like let things go. It feels like a spiritual thing being on a Sunday. Like that's our church,
Yeah. I always call Cheeseman like the shuffle mecca. You know what I mean? So I think it's appropriate. Yeah, it's like us going to church. It's almost like a spiritual type thing.
Yeah, we've essentially that. I mean, that's home. I'm trying to think of the word. We've imprinted on it pretty much.
I mean, it's on our flag, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, the pavilion's pretty much ours.
Yeah, it belongs to us for sure.
It does.
Like people can lay claim to it, but like no.
We'll share it sometimes with like the Flow community, but it's ours.
I endorse this message.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you described the scene very very well, and I just love them. It's like a continual dopamine hit. It's when I have the most ADHD because like I'm talking to friends. Now I want to go dance, fire music. I still want to talk, haven't seen this person in a while, like get in their ear, that sort of thing. So it's that real, like those meetups really strengthen the fabric of the community here in Denver for sure. Like they're like our flagship, and like you said, it's family time and a lot of bonding happens there. So, and amazing moments are captured there and we can always like look back at them and it's just one of those just majestic shuffle moments that you won't get back, but you'll look back at it and be like, wow, I remember.
Yeah. And there's something about those floors. And for those who haven't been there, and once you do get the chance to go, you'll understand. But the floors are magic. And like some people I think don't like them because they're a little too slippery. But for me, and I know for a lot of people, like it's so easy. It feels right. The floors help your flow, and like I have yet to find better floors, honestly.
It's pretty good, and they're always like clean. It's always a good environment.
Such a clean environment, yeah.
Yeah,
And you
I
have
don't
like
know
the
who
mountains
sweeps.
in the back.
Yes,
The
yes.
footage doesn't do it justice, I feel like, because when you're there and the sun setting and the mountains are in the back, it couldn't be more perfect. And the fact that it just landed in our hands that way, like it was always meant to be. Like I said, I lived a block from it. Like what are the odds that that would happen? I'm sure we would have found it regardless, but it was just all too good to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. You stumbled upon it and I moved 2 blocks from it intentionally because I was like, I love this place. I'm living here, so you got a good deal. Just, throwing the dart at the board and there it was. So we had talked a little bit about the showing at these meetups and you used the word family. I used the word family because I think it's very much that. What is the culture behind Mile High Shufflers, just in general, and then maybe some things that kind of differentiate us comparatively from other communities or other collectives, whether that be shuffling or just other hobby groups or something like that.
Yeah. It's hard to say because I don't know all the communities, but for me, it feels like with our community, at least, it's people first, dance second. So, yes, we're connected by shuffling and we're bonding over this hobby that we all have. But I think the closeness comes from way outside of the hobby. And to think about it, honestly, like some of the people in our family don't really dance much. And you don't have to be a shuffler to hang out with us, like we don't just care about that. And we value friendship so much. And I think we all value the sense of community and just belonging, especially because most of us aren't from here. So we all moved out here on a whim, and it's hard moving somewhere. It's hard starting a new life. It's hard making friends. And this has almost allowed people to just have an easier entryway to their new life. And so I don't know. I think we prioritize and we really nurture our relationships outside of the dance, which is hard to do. It's hard to connect with people outside of, just like mutual interests. And I think it's a slow burn for some people to feel connected to others. So I think we make it a point to prioritize that. And to prioritize to get to know these people that we're with every single weekend. At least I know I do, and many have. Like I've met some of my best friends through this, and it took some time, but I see it happening with everybody now too. I'm like, you guys weren't this close, like 2 years ago, and it's just so sweet to see those like relationships forming the way that they do, because it's organic. It's organic, but it's also really intentional. I think our community just has so much love to give to each other. Just as much love as they have to give to the dance, they have even more of that to give to one another. And I just think that's really special.
Yeah, I think you had touched on, like, a lot of us are transplants and getting to Denver kind of on our own, maybe not the most robust support structures in place before coming. And I hear so many anecdotes throughout the group that you know, this was what they needed. This was the support that they needed upon arriving. And I know it was for me, absolutely. Just getting here and not knowing a lot of people, not really clicking with, you know, I was out here for school, not really clicking with my class and my cohort, and making my way from Boulder to Denver to come hang out with you guys. And just being accepted immediately, being invited out to shows, being invited to meetups, all that type of stuff. It gave me a footing or a foundation for being here, and I feel like that's been a theme across, you know, the group. So I think it's done a lot for people, you know, and it just goes back to, it's not just a dance, you know, it's a thing that, it's a glue that holds us together and strengthens friendships and bonds and things like that. It's just amazing that it could do that for so many people, you know, just a small idea and a small interest, blowing it up and getting it organized. It impacted a lot of people's lives in that regard. So yeah. Is there, you know, this sounds, it sounds like, a group that's too good to be true. You know, are there any like misconceptions about the Mile High Shufflers, or you know, what we're about, like what we kind of stand for, our values?
So I will say that we're not a crew, because I know we get that that impression a lot. Because we're more than just, like I said, we're more than just the shuffle aspect. I like to refer to us as more of a collective, especially with some of the things that we're trying to dive into now. I would say that's a big one. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes there's a misconception that we're a little cliquey. Because we, you know, we do have that main hub on Instagram where it's just, there's a fraction of us compared to our Discord chat. And I do just want to clear that up, that I think we there's that impression that we're cliquey because of how close we are. And so from an outsider's perspective, it does feel intimidating, and it feels like they have to do a little extra work to feel connected to us. And we have run into some issues with that in the past, but I do just want to clarify that every single person that is as close to our group as they are, it's because they put the work and effort to become this close. You know, they were vulnerable, the way you said, and they put themselves out there, and it's not an easy thing to do. And even you felt intimidated, but you're like, I'm going to come back. And I didn't talk to her then, but I'll talk to her next time. And especially with how big we've grown, it's hard to keep up with everyone, which sucks. I wish I could keep up with everyone. But I think at this point, there's so many of us in the core of our group that if I'm missing someone, you're not missing that person. Or if we're both missing that person, Mario isn't missing that person. So no one's going to get left behind. And if you really want to get to know us and be a part of this, like, we welcome you with open arms. And you know, it's just like anything else. Like, relationships take a little bit of time sometimes. But we really do welcome everyone. Like, you don't even have to shuffle to sit with us. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and just my own progression of being a part of the group. You know, it wasn't like I was anyone's best friend the first day, but I always felt included. I always felt there was an inclusive nature to it, and yeah, that's the thing. It's hard when, okay, maybe the first couple times that you hang out, it's a meetup every month, but it's only once a month. So over a season, that's only 4 times that you've interacted with people. Like, that's sometimes just not enough for a relationship to grow and things like that. And then, you know, maybe you see each time that people are close at those meetups. I could see how it could probably give the wrong impression. But I think it's just like showing up
Exactly.
and being yourself, being vulnerable. You don't even have to work on the dance. Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, the dance is secondary. Like if you show up and you're hitting the same moves and you have the same competency level, I don't care. You're having fun. Like that's
Exactly.
dope.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I thank you for clearing that up, and thank you for to kind of just describing how our culture is. So to this day, you know, where are the Mile High Shufflers at? You know, how large are we? How netted are we in the or sewn into the community, the larger shuffle community, and also like the Denver EDM scene, and where are we kind of heading?
Um, so we took a bit of a hiatus last year. We kind of touched on this briefly, but we had an incident that happened earlier last year that really shook things up. And shook things up and shook me up specifically. Where I realized that I was no longer dancing or shuffling for myself, and everything that I was doing was for everyone but me. And that was really hard for me to digest and work through. And so this incident was almost like a manifestation of everything that I was already feeling. Like it made me come to this hard stop. So it was kind of a blessing because I think that I was burning myself to the ground. And I think at one point I really thought I hated shuffling. I thought I was done with it. I'm like, I don't care about this. I don't want to do this anymore. This has become my job and it's too much responsibility. And I blamed shuffling. And so we took a little hiatus, and it ended up being a lot longer than I anticipated it to be. But I just remember, I mean, for the most of last year, I did not dance. And I would go through these little periods where I really wanted to, but I still couldn't. And it wasn't until a little bit later in the year that it was until after our shuffle battle that we did, which all props to Paulina, by the way. It has the Mile High Shuffler's name on it, but like that was all of Paulina's doing. And of course, everyone who came together the day of the event to make it happen. But
You're talking about the MHS kill off in October of 2022.
Yeah. In which I'll also add, I wasn't the fondest of, because I'm like, this is just another thing. Like, this is another thing that I said that I can't commit to or that I don't want to do because I had this like relationship with shuffling last year. And then it happened. And then it was the most beautiful thing to see into fruition because we have been talking about this battle for years. It's always been something that was brought up by our good friend Epi, who's in the breakdancing scene. He kind of sponsors us pretty much. But he has been bugging me nonstop. Like, let's make a shuffle battle happen. I'm like, I'm not your person. Like, I hear you and this sounds great and it's a great vision, but I can't be the person to do this. And so last year, Paulina's like, we're going to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm here to support you. And I tend to kind of expect the worst sometimes, or honestly, I'd like to expect the worst so that I'm not disappointed. And so I knew that we would be able to make this happen, but I was always just expecting the least outcome from it because I didn't know how successful we could actually make this happen. And this was just another thing that happened so organically. And it all came together, honestly, pretty close to October. We all kind of put our heads down and we're like, okay, this is happening. And I ended up, because Jorge moved to Canada, so I ended up having to step in a little bit to help Paulina.
Yeah, Jorge was one of the organizers initially.
And so he moved away to Canada. And so, Paulina obviously needed a little bit of help. And that's kind of where I started kind of coming back to shuffling a little bit, and we had the battle, and it turned out way better than I ever could have anticipated. And it was just kind of like a wake up call, like, why am I being so negative? Why did I think that our family and that MHS wouldn't be able to pull something off like this? And so it was just a reality check for me that really pulled me out of that funk. And I was just like, okay, I remember now why I was so invested in this group, and to think that I wanted to kind of just give up on it. I was a little disappointed in myself, because that feeling's familiar again, like that, just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to give up. And I realized it wasn't like I didn't hate shuffling. I hated the decisions that I was making that led me to burn out and feel that way. Like, I just didn't know how to set those boundaries. I didn't know how to ask for help. And I could tell, because Mike and Frick were helping me with these meetups, and Mike ended up walking away. And then I could tell that my partner Frick didn't really want to do it anymore either. And I don't blame him,
Yeah.
Because this is my thing, and he was just lending a hand. And so after the kill off, I realized that I'm like, if I just need help, I just need to ask for it. And so that's whenever I reached out to you and to Mario, and I'm like, okay, like, everyone says they want to help and they want to contribute. So like, let's do this. And I'm extending my hand now, asking for help, because I can't do this alone, nor do I want to do this alone. And so, yeah, that was just kind of what turned things around. And now we've had 2-3 meetups,
Something like that.
Yeah, since pretty recently.
Well, the meetup after the kill off was freaking awesome.
Oh,
that was
yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
With Brennan.
Probably one of my favorite. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorites.
That was a good one. It was packed, and it was just a good time too.
And because we were showing, the other shufflers who came out of town, who were representing other shuffle communities or crews or whatever affiliation they were, like how we get down. And I think it was a really good representation of that. Like, it went without a hitch. So
yeah, that was a good one. I forgot about that. And then, did we have a meetup in December? I don't think we did. I think we took a little break for the holidays.
Yeah. I think, people are traveling and stuff like that.
So we took a little break, and then we had that conversation where I was like, I want to keep this going, and I have a lot of ideas for 2023, and that momentum's definitely coming back. I can feel people getting excited again, and right now, I guess the direction where we want to take things is we just want to keep elevating the community with what we're doing. We want to elevate our dancers. We want to elevate the DJs that come out to play for us. And we want to elevate the experience. Like, we've been doing this for so long, and I feel like it's time to just kind of take it up a notch, because we can, and because we have the support to do so. Because I'm not afraid to ask for help anymore. So yeah, we have something really exciting planned. When are you posting this again?
It'll be mid-March. It might have already happened. It might have
already happened, but we have something really fun planned for March, and we're hoping to have more events like this happen in the future. So.
And I think they will, for sure. Just with the enthusiasm, with the group. And, after you did that and it kind of extended your hand, and, maybe it could have been perceived as kind of giving away some power. You really were empowering other people to do certain things in whatever capacity that they felt comfortable in doing for MHS, whether that be coordinating the merch, whether that be coordinating meetups. What are the other groups that we have? Social media,
events.
Yep. Special events such as future kill-offs, future, after hours events and things like that. Maybe a Maha Shufflers Festival.
Wink, wink.
I don't know. But yeah, no, and I think that was some rocket fuel for for the Mile High Shufflers, and just that openness of ideas, and how can we kind of rock the boat, stuff like that. It probably took a lot for you, but hopefully that was like the right decision, and
it feels right.
Good.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize. I just want to go back real quick. I didn't realize that the kill off was the thing that kind of it reinvigorated you and everything like that. And I just want to impart on any listeners that we have like that fiasco that we had at the meetup wasn't due to someone internal to us. It was totally external circumstances, and it was just an unruly person who kind of put a kibosh on our meetup in a big way, and it just wasn't very pretty. But it wasn't anything internal to us or any kind of like self-destructing type mechanism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like I said, it was a situation that felt like just randomly manifested because of like where I was in my headspace. I'm like, okay, I'm physically seeing what I'm feeling right now. But yeah, that didn't it stopped us for a little bit, but not permanently.
Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, I think that's awesome that an event like that was a turning point for you, and maybe you were thinking that, okay, I just maybe a different leadership style or whatever else. It seems like it was character building for you in a sense, and the position that you were in and how you were leading others. Okay, so we have a lot of cool things going on in MHS, and then in the future. Where do you see this in 5 years, 10 years?
I see this in someone else's hands, which I feel like is a big theme of where I'm at this year, where I just want to make sure that the foundation of our group is so strong that no matter where I go or no matter where you go, that this will continue forward, and that we are instilling these values into newer members so that there will always be someone ready to step up whenever someone steps down. Because ultimately, like, this isn't a forever thing for me. I plan to move away, and I want to be able to do that and know that what we've created won't just crumble, and that it's in good hands always. And so, yeah, in 5-10 years, I just see things being different, but better, because someone new is always going to come along who has fresh ideas and that drive that might not be as active in me anymore, but they'll keep it moving. And so I don't know who said this. Someone in the community said this. It might have been Sierra, but good leaders create other leaders. And that is something that I try to think of a lot, because it would be so sad to see this just like completely plateau and just like die, and so the biggest thing for me is just creating that core, so that it never dissipates.
Yeah, it sustains itself, organically.
That's what it is.
And you can always return to it as well.
Exactly.
You left it in a good condition.
It's still going to be there when I come back.
Yeah. So you're incentivized to do all the things necessary to make sure that it keeps its integrity and its foundation, because you want to continue to be a part of it, even if it's from afar.
Sometimes I do just want to be the spectator.
Not yet.
Not yet, but one day.
Got it. So, I asked you, where is MHS now and where is it going? You personally, where are you now? Where do your interests lie, and where are you looking to go? Whether, it could be career-wise, interest-wise, just, passions, hobbies, whatever.
Yeah. So like I said, I do plan to move probably sooner rather than later. I have family in Europe that I just want to be closer to. So right now I'm very focused on next steps for myself. My career is going great. I kind of put that in my back pocket because that's just kind of my day-to-day things. I
Hmm.
feel like it's not my career isn't like my passion, but I am very proud of the work that I do. And so that's just kind of a part of my life that
You're
I,
in the mental health industry, correct?
Mhm. Yeah. So I kind of keep that a little kind of pocketed away. But um, as far as like personal goals and like kind of what I want to dip my toes in, I've of course been picking up DJing recently. Um, and like I said, I can't do multiple things at once. I have to really hone in on my craft. So um, I just really, really want to develop as an artist. I would love to start producing at some point. And this is again just coming from a place where I want to prove that to myself because
Mm.
I've never played an instrument. I don't know how to play guitar or like anything. I've never played with music like this before, and so it is more of a learning curve, and it is more difficult, and it is frustrating that I don't have that leg up to just kind of dive into it. It's just another thing that I want to prove to myself that I don't have to have a background in music and instruments to be able to pick it up now because it's never too late to pick these things up. And so I'm just excited to learn and again prove to myself that I can do these things.
Yeah, and see where it takes you in the
Yeah.
future. It's so funny. I think we're very similar in that vein. Like no dance experience, no music experience, but following these same glide paths. And I honestly think that, sometimes going into it without a background in it, without some kind of paradigm or how you perceive it and structure it in your head allows a lot of freedom for which you approach it, whether that be dance or music or whatever, or whatever else. So, maybe someone has a leg up to you with you or on you because they have a little bit of music theory and they just
Mhm.
understand, maybe phrasing better on a
Yeah.
DJ equipment. But you've gone into it outside of the box where they've been operating inside of a box. So, maybe our ailments are our advantages as
Yeah.
well.
They're
So,
strengths in
yeah,
their own way.
I think so. Very cool. Well, we're going to switch gears. It's been amazing talking to you. We're going to go to the last segment of the show. It's the world famous Final Five. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So these are 5 questions that I ask all of my guests, and just to get to know them a little bit better and to show a different side of them. Some of them are music related, some of them are dance related, some of them are seemingly unrelated to both of those. So the first question, and I'm interested to see what you say about this because you're such a musical connoisseur. Like you started with indie music and alternative music, and then moved into EDM. What is your favorite music genre?
And it's definitely going to be dance music at this point. Any and all, honestly. I like to dabble with everything, even though I tend to stick to certain genres, but little sprinkle of everything, I like to say. But right now, and because I swear that my taste changes like every single year, I just get bored of music really, really easily. But right now, my go tos are always techno. Honestly, a little more of like tech trance I've kind of been into.
What?
I know. Yeah. Techno that like pretty much sounds like 90s trance is my go-to.
Like, I don't know 90s trance too much, but like hard trance, like a progressive type trance where it's like a little bit heavier.
That is just like very fast and
Mm.
there's like a little bit of more of a melody to it, but a fast melody. I
Hmm.
think the melodies is what gives it that like trance feel to it a little bit more. Um, Yeah, I don't know, because it depends who you ask, but a lot of people are just like, "That techno is pretty much just trance rebranded." Because if you look up trance from the '90s, it honestly sounds like techno that we're hearing now. Maybe not
Hmm.
that in not the industrial techno, but um, just that lighter, faster, groovy techno that has very strong melodies. But yeah, I've been really big into that. And then a little more like niche, left field, break beats, jungle. Recently been quite a fan of D&B and like old school dub. I feel like I'm coming full circle. Like this is nasty. I want the filthy stuff lately. So yeah, those are my favorites and my top.
Like the stank face grooves.
Yeah.
D&B will do that to you.
That and
especially
like
the breakbeats too.
some like ghetto tech and like some Jersey because we love to pop our pussies over here. How to say it.
and drop our dongs.
Yeah.
Okay. No, you have a very wide range, and I've seen you play like these sets. I've seen like a melodic techno set. I've also seen breakbeat from you and things like that. So you definitely express it in different forms and fashions throughout like your sets throughout the years that I've witnessed. No, very cool. The next question, and I think I know, okay, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. I just want to hear it from you. What is your favorite place to dance?
I mean, like Cheese, of course, but honestly, anywhere alone. I'm going to be honest. I love, 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 love dancing all by myself, not having a single person around me. I just feel like I can't tap into the most of my abilities unless I'm alone. Especially because post-pandemic, my social anxiety kind of came back, and it was something that I thought I kicked, but it came back and it's made dancing more difficult in spaces with other people. And so now anytime or any chance I get to just dance for me and by myself, like that's my favorite place.
That's an awesome answer. Yeah. It's I think you need to find the right environment in which you dance, not just a location, it could be, your headspace or whether there's people or not. So, got it. Yeah. Mario said in that question, cause I'm always thinking about location, like location or nothing, but he said with friends, it doesn't matter where.
Of course Mario said that.
He's so cute. He is. Next question. What has been your favorite set, show, or festival you've attended? Could be any of those. We talked about 2 solid festivals. I don't know if that's...
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to go with set. And it's not... Well, I'm going to go with set and festival, but set... I can't sit here and say this has been my number one, but it's just one that is very prominent. And I think back, I'm like, that shit was crazy. But Robert Hood at 3 Points in Miami, that entire night, though, there was like what do you call when the rain just like pours? It like comes by and it's just like a swoon.
Oh, like a tsunami, or not a tsunami.
No, I thought that too. What's it called?
Tropical storm?
It was like a tropical storm of sorts. And Coffin, Texas playing too. And I remember I have never seen it rain like this. And instead of leaving, everyone just like stayed in the pit and they were raging. And it was the most... I felt like an animal. Like it was so primal. And then so that like into Robert Hood, craziest shit.
Was that the start of your feral lifestyle?
A little bit, yeah.
Feral animal.
I don't know. I've actually always been pretty feral. I was very tame as a child. So I think that like as soon as I turned 18, I just unleashed. But yeah, that was a really good one. And then it's hard to say with festivals because I feel like that changes every year too. But top 3, I would have to say Electric Forest, Day for Night in Houston. If anybody went to that, it was like an arts and music festival. So a lot of it was like digital interactive art. And so just one of the craziest festivals I've ever been to and just so well put. I saw some really, really crazy crazy art there. It only happened like 2 or 3 years. Also saw Nina Kravis there for the first time, and that's when I was like, acid techno, like sick. And then of course Deck Mantle in Europe last year are my top 3.
Got it. Wow. Yeah. And yeah, so you've traveled quite a bit for these, and it's been a priority for you to, have these experiences.
Definitely. Especially when I lived back home. Not so much anymore because it's in my backyard now, but definitely back then.
We are spoiled in Denver. That's for sure. We get good musicians all the time. All right, I'm going to change gears a little bit. But I think a lot of people can learn about you with this question. What is your favorite book?
Favorite book is, I want to say it's probably this book called Ishmael. And don't ask me who the author is because I can't think of it right now.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. But Ishmael, Ishmael. It's kind of a self-help book, but it's more, the self-help is kind of an undertone of it, but it's essentially a story that is told by a gorilla. And he is giving his perspective on the world from an animal's like point of view, and he touches a lot on like the givers and the takers of the world, and like his experience with humanity and how humans can either be the detriment or the opposite of that, and it just like kind of depends on us and the path that we want to take and the patterns that we want to repeat or change. It's a really good book. Yeah.
Got it. It's like a story, self-help type book. Okay. Cool. The last question that I have for you, I think like the most meaningful one, in my opinion, if you could put any message on the main stage production of a big festival, so think Tomorrowland, EDC Las Vegas, what would it say? There'd be thousands and thousands of people looking at this message.
Maybe to just stay true to you and to not get lost in anybody or anything else but yourself. Don't sell your soul. And just be honest with yourself and with your intentions. If you're at a festival, you should know why you're there. Okay, be intentional about everything that you do.
Beautiful. I like it. I'd vibe with it.
We don't want anything too long.
Yeah,
on the screen. Yeah. They won't read it.
Make it short and sweet. Yeah. We're bumping the techno right now. Like, well, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I was super interested in the origins of MHS, and I learned a lot, and I also learned a lot about you as well. It's just been a great conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners before we wrap up?
If you've been looking for a sign to move to Denver, this is it.
I think so. I think these initial episodes, it's all with homies, and it kind of just shows how close knit we all are. And I think there are a couple people who are a little gun shy about moving here, but probably the best thing for them, like my good friend that I've just met going to shows and going to festivals, Emeka from Kansas City. He just moved here. He just pulled the trigger. He's here now.
One of us.
Yeah, one of us. And and he had been talking about it for a couple months, and so it's been great to kind of see people and to influence them and to kind of grow this community from the outside and bringing people in. Not just individuals who are local to here. They kind of see, especially with like this remote work type structure that we have going on now. It's like people can kind of live wherever and yeah, and they're in a city that I guess might not be serving them as well in the capacity that they want, with the interests that they have, such as shuffling and music. And I just impart people to really assess where they're at, maybe, and check out other places, because you might just vibe better in another spot. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to you. So yeah. I think that'll be a common theme here as well. If people want to connect with you after the show, maybe they're inspired about some of the things that you talked about, how can they do that? What's the best way to connect with you?
I'd probably connect with me via Instagram. If you want to follow my TikTok, I'm just being silly over there, but yeah, Instagram, you can keep up with like any shows I have coming up, any updates with like the Mile High Shufflers as well. I'll probably the most active on there. But if you want to support my music, definitely check out my SoundCloud as well.
Perfect. And we'll link to all those in the show notes as well. So Didi, it's been a lot of fun. I just want to thank you one more time for coming on. Yeah, this was a great night and a great conversation.
Yeah,
thank you, friend.
Too, Patty.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shuffle Curious podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave a rating and a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to tell a friend either. I'm excited for you to join us in our next episode. And in the meantime, remember to keep dancing and stay curious.